is calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to SkyTour Radio here on the best station on the net. It's kgradio.com. I'm your host, Mark D'Antonio, for SkyTour Radio. It's that time again. This is a live show on Sunday night, October 27th. And I have with me, of course, Amanda. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Mark. I'm well. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you. And guess who else is here? We have Daryl with us.
Yay!
Daryl, what's up?
Hey, Mark. Hey, Amanda. Hello,
Hey,
everybody.
Hey, I'm glad to hear from both of you. We've had a really colorful week with SkyTour Livestream, the companion stream to SkyTour Radio. And SkyTour Livestream, of course, is our interactive live observatory that we run with a nice big telescope in there. And we have two actually in there. And they look at the deep sky, all bringing you all these wonderful sights of the universe that no one ever sees because they just don't look up anymore. We see stellar birthplaces. We see remnants of dead and dying stars. We see glittering jewel boxes, which are beautiful clusters that just look like diamonds in the sky, only if you know where to look. Well, we know where to look, and we take you there on clear nights. We've had some record turnout lately. We've had some wonderful streams. We've actually had streams that have gone for about 4 hours long, and we actually were able to show people a number of different things that were absolutely fun, and people really, really enjoyed them. So if you want to check these things out, you can subscribe to SkyTour Livestream on YouTube, and you will find Amanda and Daryl as well as being the co-host on SkyTour Livestream. So your entire SkyTour Radio group will be there as well. We try to all make our schedules work out so we can be there all at once. But sometimes SkyTour Livestream, it only happens on clear nights, and sometimes it's a last-minute decision. But you'll get at least me, and you'll probably get Daryl and Amanda, and hopefully all three of us at the same time. And sometimes we even have special guests, like we've had Carol Carl on for the last 2 streams, I believe, and it was actually quite nice. Amanda and Carol were ganging up against me on the last stream, if I recall. Was that true, Amanda?
I think that was your imagination.
No, you guys were ganging up on me. I'm telling you. And of course, Carol Carl is our KGRA radio host here, of course, behind the Obsidian Curtain, Fridays at 7 p.m. You check that out as well. So, Amanda, of course, you have your shows over on ERRT Radio. And where can people go to find that information?
They can go to errtradio.com. It's on Mixlr. You can check it out Tuesdays at 9 Eastern, Fridays at 5 Eastern, and tonight after SkyTour Radio at 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah, and what's tonight's? What are you doing tonight?
Tonight's the Sunday Night Funnies. A nice way to end the week after some learning here on KGRA. We can laugh the night away as we head into the new week. Not sure who the featured artist is going to be tonight. I never know until the last minute, but someone great, I'm sure.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
But you see, folks, KGRA is wonderful, and we look forward to having you with us for the entire 2 hours of SkyTour Radio. And SkyTour Radio now has a call-in line, but unfortunately tonight the lines are down. But those lines are sponsored by the Paranormal app, which you can get on Google Play or iTunes. Unfortunately, they'll be up, probably another day or two, just beyond our time on the air. But that's okay. So that said, tonight on SkyTour Radio, do you know what we're going to talk about? I don't think I told you guys, but I think it's really kind of cool. We do have an exoplanet roundup. And the roundup tonight focuses on hot Jupiter, a planet that's surrounding a star that's like 600 to 800 light years away, and it's called WASP 12b. Now, WASP is a wide area search for planets it's a small telescope arrays that are designed to look into the sky for transiting planets that are passing between us and their star. And that subtle, very, very tiny, teensy weeny bit of light that's lost as the planet passes in front of the star is what these telescopes are designed to detect. It's what Kepler did so well in orbit until it finished its mission and so forth. So this particular planet is called WASP-12b. The star is WASP-12. And WASP-12 is a G0 type star. Now, Amanda probably is already getting ready to say it, but in the grand scheme of things, there's a stellar classification that we use to classify stars. Amanda, would you be so kind as to take us through that?
It is OBAFGKM.
Okay, and
they go from hottest to coolest, from biggest to smallest, and from blue to red.
Fantastic. That's a very, very nice way to say all that.
Yay, Amanda.
Yay.
Now, folks, that's coming from someone who didn't know any astronomy when we started Sky Tour Radio. So you can see that people really do enjoy learning about the universe, even if it's a little bit at a time, just a couple hours a week. So Amanda's done quite well, and I always applaud her development in astronomy. I feel really good that she's taken to it as she has.
And for those of you that were with us on YouTube last week, I actually finally figured out a concept Mark's been trying to explain to me for several months now with the Ring Nebula.
That's right.
And it's just a theory. It's nothing confirmed, but I was trying to see how he was looking at what he was looking at. And I think I finally found it. So there's breakthroughs all the time. I do keep at it. They're small, but it's like a million jigsaw pieces, and I'm trying to make a picture. So stick with me.
Yeah, well, no, the folks do, but you got to keep in mind that if you're thinking about the question and you ask the question, you're one of many tens or hundreds that are thinking of asking the question. So, it's not like your learning level is way too low for everyone listening. Your learning level is just fine because you're probably right there with a lot of other folks that are also eager to hear the answer. So I'm really, that's kind of why the synergy and the energy, I think, between us works so well when it comes to Sky Tour live stream and Sky Tour radio, because you ask questions that everybody else, or not everybody, but many people are thinking as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you fill in those gaps that I may not do. So that's why it's a very important synergy here. So I'm happy about that.
And I'm really glad Daryl's part of that too, because you have the most wonderful, very simple yet elegant analogies of ways to look at things that average people can relate to.
That's right.
Yeah,
right,
I love his analogies.
I've never been called simple and elegant, but I have been called a cultured ruffian before. And speaking of jigsaw puzzles, I once did a jigsaw puzzle of the night sky. It took a while, but I got that sucker, let me tell you.
Oh, wow. I bet you did. I mean, it was probably tough with the constellations. Did you have mythology drawings on there, or was it just the stars with the...
No, just the stars, and it had the connected outlines on it, but, still, 88 constellations, it took a while. Because they all look alike after a while.
Black and white stars.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it was in color. I bet it was like a deep blue. It was probably pretty, wasn't it?
It was okay. It was deep blue with, I forget, the stars are maybe yellow.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow, very cool. Well, folks, when we look at these stars up in the night sky, we don't often think that there could be that many planets around them, although nowadays we know that there are more planets than there are stars in the entire universe. So we're not just talking about our galaxy, we're talking about all the other galaxies, of which there's approximately 1 to 2 trillion, T as in Tom, trillion other galaxies out there. And yet in our galaxy, we could have up to 25 million, from 25 million habitable Earth-like planets all the way up to potentially tens of billions with a B, tens of billions, just in our galaxy. And then I always like to say, and then again, and by the way, there's maybe 2 trillion galaxies out there. So the numbers become what we call astronomical right from the get-go when we're talking about this. So considering this planet WASP-12b that we talked about, WASP-12 is a star like our sun. It's a little bit hotter. It's a G0. So when Amanda gave you the spectral classification of the stars from OBAFGKM, you can see that it's close to us. A G0 is two subtypes hotter than ours. So we're a G2. This was a G0. It's a little more luminous than the sun. It's hotter than the sun by a slight amount. And it also is an oddball star because it has 2 M3 stars circling it. So in other words, it doesn't have planets per se. It has 2 M stars circling it. Now, they're not right up close. They're pretty far away. And right up close to this G0 star is, actually there's this triple star basically, is this hot Jupiter we're talking about. And that's the 12b part of it. B is in boy, right? WASP-12b is a hot Jupiter that goes around that star in just 1.1 days. Now, that means it's only 1.8 million miles from the star that's like our sun, a little hotter than our sun. Okay, 1.8 million miles. Now compare that to Mercury. Mercury is 30 million miles approximately from our sun. 30 million miles Mercury orbits the sun from, and its surface is hot enough to melt lead and much more. So imagine how hot the atmosphere on this hot Jupiter, this WASP-12b, imagine how hot that atmosphere has to be. It's probably positively incandescent in some places. But that isn't the biggest news. That's not what makes this stand out, if that's not enough. Okay, it's an extremely hot planet with an extremely hot atmosphere. The thing that makes it really special is that 12b is actually spiraling into the star. It's actually going to be consumed by the star. And it's the first time we've ever seen this. And it'll take it about 1 million years to go through the entire process. But you might ask, well, how do we know it's spiraling from so far away? Well, we know it's spiraling because the time of the transit has been decreasing by 29 milliseconds per year. Now, you think about that and think, well, that's nothing per year. Yeah, but add up 1 million of those years, and it adds up to a planet that has been eaten by the star. So the planet's orbit is decaying. And if there was some way in which a civilization could ever live, but they certainly couldn't, not a carbon-based life like ours, around that star, then they've got well less than 1 million years to get off that planet. Now, it's probably tidally locked, meaning that the dark side of that planet is going to stay dark. It doesn't ever turn and face the star because when a planet is that close to the star, the differential gravitational forces will basically cause that planet to be locked facing the star, just like the moon is locked facing the Earth. All right? What an incredible thing. Now, the universe has nothing but time. So if you do the math, as I said, you'll figure out that this planet, which is currently about 9 times further from the star than the moon is from the Earth, it'll head into that stellar atmosphere in about 1 million years. And it makes you wonder something, doesn't it? And I'm wondering if Daryl or Amanda has thought of this at all, even now or in the past. It makes you wonder if when our solar system was formed during the early evolution, did we have other planets that ended up being consumed by our young sun? And after the solar system was formed, the orbit settled down, and any errant planets were going to either be ejected from the solar system, absorbed by the sun, or absorbed through collisions with other planets, and that's got to be a possibility, don't you think?
Oh, sure. The whole present Earth-Moon hypothesis says that something the size of Mars struck the planet Earth. And the junk that got splashed off in the collision eventually turned into the moon.
That's right.
I've heard that Jupiter and Saturn, the gas giants around our sun, have changed position over the eons, and Jupiter is the second biggest thing in the solar system and has great effects on the other planets. It has mixed up the solar system in the past, and maybe it will in the future. And that includes, planets either getting flung right out of the solar system or, their orbits disrupted where they maybe fell into the sun.
I agree with that. That's true. And keep in mind, and for those of you out there, we have an asteroid belt in our solar system out past Mars and before Jupiter. That's the primary asteroid belt. We actually have other asteroids hurtling around in near-Earth space as well. Those are called NEOs, or near-Earth objects. But the asteroid belt, the primary belt, out past Mars and before Jupiter, is a belt primarily because Jupiter has been doing this mixing Daryl was talking about for billions of years. And as it moves around ever so slowly in its orbit farther from the asteroids, which orbit faster than Jupiter does, closer to the sun means faster you orbit the sun, Jupiter tugs on these asteroids and pulls them a little bit out toward it as they pass by, and then they end up going back into their place. That minor little bit of tugging that occurs for billions of years has prevented the asteroids from ever combining into one object. So what that means is when we find asteroid belts elsewhere, and we've found many large asteroid belts around some of these stars, maybe they are asteroid belts because, one, they're young systems and they haven't had time to congeal into a planet or a moon, or two, there's another larger companion out there that we have yet to catch that's preventing them from forming into planets. You see, some of astronomy is done by inference. You infer things from what you see and you observe. So I think that's a pretty a special possibility, So I don't know. There's no telling really how many times a collision with another planet, the star ate a planet or ejected a planet, has happened here. But watching this,
we have a few questions about WASP 12b before we move on.
Okay, good.
Charles wants to know, would WASP 12b eventually be a naked planet core? Thinking of the mining possibilities.
Oh, that's actually a very interesting question. It's possible that there will be a point in its history where a lot of the atmosphere will have been lost to space because it would have been vaporized and or disassociated by the powerful infrared and ultraviolet radiation actually from that star.
Is that what he means by naked?
Yeah, I think so. He means that if the atmosphere was to be boiled away, say, would it have a core left over? Yes, it would. However, that core is already hot from formation of the planet in the first place, made all the hotter now by the fact that it'll be now exposed to the full radiation of that star. So there'd be no way we could even get close to it to mine it. Even if it was happening here in our own solar system, all we could do is watch helplessly because we wouldn't have anything that could withstand the radiation and or the transferred heat to our craft if we were trying to do that mining. But that's a great idea, Charles. I mean, feel free to invent that ship, and we'll send you off and have you go for it. If we don't, we'll know you didn't make it. But
I know you were saying there's no way we could possibly live there, but if something could live on a planet like WASP 12b, what might that look like? Ronald wants to know.
Ronald has good questions, and here on this planet, we know that we have what we call extremophiles. Extremophiles are creatures that live in the most inhospitable places that we, as humans, could never survive in. But they, as microbes and other creatures that live in these inhospitable environments, think are just heaven. So could something survive there? I have to say, based on what I've seen with the diversity of life here on this planet and how every little niche on this planet has life somehow filling in, The only place we don't find life is inside of molten rock, such as lavas or magmas.
I was going to ask. I was just thinking that there's nothing that lives inside of volcanoes, like where lava's formed. No.
Well,
that we know of, anyway.
Inside volcanoes, yes, but in lava, no. In magma, no. That we know of, yes.
What lives in a volcano?
Yeah, okay, here's what that means. It means that clinging to the walls above lava lakes and away from the direct contact with lava in an open lava lake in a volcano, there have been bacteria found there that thrive in that environment. But if they were to be splashed by the lava, then they're destroyed. Okay, so that's sort of like the big equalizer. If the planet was ever to return to a molten state, every single bit of life on this planet would be extinguished. There'd be nothing that could survive it, except something that might have been in orbit, but then that something in orbit would have been probably suffered impacts and cataclysmic destruction because of the impact that caused the whole Earth to be molten again. And then you have the infrared energy radiating off the Earth to whatever's in orbit, like the satellites or the ISS, and then it would basically fry it from below. So I don't think that there's any chance of there being life inside of lava or magma. And when I say lava and magma, I hope you understand the difference. Lava is magma that has erupted onto the surface. Magma is what we call the molten rock when it's underground and contained in a chamber, like a magma chamber, we call it. So that's very interesting stuff, I have to say. I don't know what could live there on WASP 12b, but man, you've got to wonder. I can't imagine that any life beyond, say, a microbial form on the dark side could have taken hold perhaps earlier in the planet's history. That's a possibility. But even though it's tidally locked to the star, the dark side of that planet is going to probably have winds that are absolutely cyclonic. I mean, probably very, very, very high winds that would promote a lot of atmospheric mixing between the very hot side and the dark side. Because if you can imagine, hot air expands, cold air shrinks. So on the dark side, the air is going to be cooler. Well, what about at the border? Well, that warm air is going to rush over to the cool side and start mixing with the cold air, and it's eventually going to reach all the way around, and that's probably going to equalize temperatures somewhat all around the planet, even though it's on the dark side. So, are there any more questions for that?
No, that's it so far.
Cool. Well, ask away, folks. If you got questions, I'm happy to help you out. And
I don't know why I'm seeing transparent people on WASP 12b.
What?
If I'm visualizing what people would look like, I'm visualizing transparent people. I don't know why.
That's funny, because I thought the same thing.
Because, I mean, it wouldn't keep your internal organs any cooler if we were that hot close to sun,
But it would allow the radiation to pass through is probably what you're getting at.
That's what I'm thinking.
So, in effect, if you could do that, it's possible then that if a being didn't absorb the radiation, that being could actually freeze to death in the middle of that cauldron.
Oh.
See? If the creature,
that
the being,
clothes come in?
Well, that let me see where clothes that can survive that kind of heat. I mean, but
it would have to be some kind of crazy material. I don't know.
Well, or just see, that's a very interesting comment you just made about transparent creatures and transparent beings. We do have on Earth, we've had creatures that are almost transparent, and that was a natural selection choice because that propagated the species. They were harder to detect, harder to eat if they were almost transparent. Jellyfish, for instance, are very nearly transparent. There's a reason for that, right? I mean, they also light up with these amazing colors. So we don't know whether jellyfish can actually communicate with each other in some rudimentary manner with color, but they don't have eyes like we have eyes, okay, for instance. But so there's reasons why transparency is selected in life forms. And I do find that really interesting, actually. But I could go on for that. I could go on for an hour with that, but I think better not. So
people love that kind of conversation. Everyone likes theorizing.
I know, it's a great theorization. I think it's really cool.
It is.
I just wonder, and this is what happens. See, when you start to become a critical thinker, as you have, Amanda, you start to think about what could survive, and then you actually, knowing more astronomy than you realize you figured out that radiation would have to pass through something so that it wouldn't be absorbed, because when it gets absorbed, that's when it gets the radiation heating up the being, the thing. So if it got absorbed or reflected perfectly, then that might be better. So if, for instance, the thing was fully 100% reflective, then that would also be a good natural selected way to survive in such an environment, wouldn't it? Because
wouldn't it come down to the chemical components the creature would be made of?
Yes, it would. It absolutely would. What would be easier, to have a transparent membrane, membranous body, or something highly reflective? I'm thinking that it would probably be something highly reflective, but even
Why?
so, well, because I'm thinking that something transparent would necessarily be simple. And if the life form was to be a little more complicated, it might have to have some reflective areas too, so that the internal parts could become more complicated and thus not have to be transparent and made of only just a few layers of molecules. Because transparency is something that is formed by a crystal lattice, like plastics, for instance, that are clear. So we'd have to have something that could be pretty elaborate and varied throughout. That's my thinking there. What do you think, Daryl?
Quartz. And you know where I'm going with that. The Horta from Star Trek, the silicon creature.
Yeah. No kill.
Yeah, but no kill eye. But yeah, I mean, heck, quartz is dense, it's transparent, or can be, but it's also, maybe it would be tough enough to withstand the temperatures. I dare say if this gas giant planet is less than 2 million miles from its star, that thing, you're talking not just red hot, you're talking yellow hot. And for it to maintain its gas giant atmosphere, well, golly, I mean, there's some really powerful forces going on there, and I couldn't see anything surviving that. Maybe something high up in the outer atmosphere, like some people have speculated about Venus.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be something low in the atmosphere, where maybe the atmosphere is. I'm sorry, man, I'll get to you in a sec. Maybe it's what?
Break. Sorry, I hate to do it to you. Can we pick this up after the break?
Oh, you know what, folks? She's absolutely right. You know what? We'll be right back, because we do have to give some folks a chance to make money on this station, and that's what we're going to do. We'll be right back after these words. This is Mark D'Antonio with Amanda and Daryl on Sky Tour Radio.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant, give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Now you have the inside contact for Alternative Talk Radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio. This is Mark D'Antonio with Amanda and Daryl. And first of all, I want to say hello to our producer's dog, Tycho, and hope that Tycho was okay. He was having a little rough spell there during the break. We heard about it. And I also want to say hello to Lauren, who is listening to us. She is someone that was at a conference we attended and that I did a talk at, and she was very attentive and had wonderful questions. And you know, it's people like that, you see, that make the world go around, that makes this all worth it. Because when I hear people asking questions that are good, like Amanda has been asking, like Daryl, of course, contributes. He actually can answer a whole lot of questions as well. He's fantastic. You know, we're trying to be like a one-stop shop for your astronomy. We do the deep sky for you with Sky Tour Livestream, and then we discuss it all on Sky Tour Radio. You know, maybe what we'll do, Daryl, is we'll do a show just about using specific filters with your cameras and telescopes to help people figure out how to get those magical shots. What do you think of that?
Oh, maybe as part of a bigger show about, you know, the ins and outs, the mechanics, the functions and types of telescopes. Sure.
That's right.
Eyepieces, focal lengths, magnification, blah, 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 light grasp.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do all that together.
Sure, we could. And you know what? I just realized something. You know, as we talk about these planets and microbial life and the potential, let's remember also that the seed of life here on Earth was rumored to have started in Olduvai Gorge in Africa, and the first hominids came out of the gorge. But there's some other developments for life on this planet that take us to Daryl's home state of Colorado.
Oh, my God.
I know, right? I'm about to think, oh, my God, who could have known that, you know? And I would like to give Daryl the opportunity to tell us all about it, because it's really a fascinating article. And if you could tell people where they can find the article, Daryl, I'm sure they would love to read it too.
Sure. Amanda, would you care to post those first two links in the chat room? And I'll try to describe in general, for those not in chat, where you can find this information at. Story broke that I first saw earlier this week that the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, which used to be called the Denver Museum of Natural History, which is an old, very cool institution museum up in Denver, has been working out just east of where I live for 3 years at a place called Corral Bluffs. Now, Corral Bluffs, if I remember correctly, is one of the places here in Colorado where you can see what was formerly known as the KT boundary, the Cretaceous-Tertiary boundary. Now, because they like to keep changing names, they now call it the Cretaceous-Paleocene boundary. So it's now the KP boundary instead of the KT, but older books and articles will still talk about the KT boundary. The KT boundary is thought to have come from the Chicxulub impact down in the Yucatan, Mexico, 65, or now they say 66 million years ago, which killed off the dinosaurs. This is where the big asteroid hit off the Yucatan down in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and the impact was of such a scale that it knocked off the dinosaurs, okay, and killed off most animals. As Mark has talked about here or on Sky Tour live streams recently, the mammals were maybe here before the dinosaurs. The mammals were suppressed over the age of the dinosaurs, and then the mammals came into their forte after the Chicxulub impact that knocked off the dinosaurs. Well, the mammals were left. Now, out here at Corral Bluffs, I could throw a rock a few times and hit the place. It's actually just a couple of miles from me. It's a neat rock formation and just geological landform. I mean, Colorado's all about geology here. But they made fossil discoveries there and what are called concretions, look like little lumps of rock, maybe sort of like geodes. And a paleontologist one day, or a mineralogist, happened to knock one of these things over with his rock hammer, knocked it open, and he found a skull inside. And the more they looked, the more skulls and fossil bones they found of mammals. Now, because this is so near the KT boundary where it's visible here, they were able to go back over time as they went down through the various rock strata, and they found the emergence of mammals immediately after the Chicxulub explosion, the asteroid explosion. And what they noted as they came back up through the rock strata, which represents time, the first mammals they found were little things, maybe the size of a raccoon or smaller. They might have weighed a pound. And they traced these fossils back up through time, closer to the present day, over the course of about 700,000 years. And 100,000 years after the impact, well, they were the size of raccoons. 300,000 years after the impact, they were the size of small pigs. By 700,000 years after the impact, they were the size of large pigs. What did they say? Larger animals. I mean, the point of all this is they noted immediately after the impact, well, here came the mammals, and they started out small, and due to foodstuffs available to them, which they talk about in these articles, legumes and things, the animals rapidly grew larger. The mammals grew larger quickly over the course of time. Looking at it from a geological scale, it happened, bang like that. 700,000 years, but that's not a lot of time in the big scheme of things.
No.
If you cannot see the links that Amanda posted, there's a third one. There may be even a fourth one, Amanda. Look up the Alvarez hypothesis on Wikipedia. This is where Luis and Walter Alvarez were poking around down there back in the 80s, I guess. And they were the first to hypothesize the Chicxulub impact. Okay, and it has become sort of the ground base of everything people believe about dinosaurs and their extinction nowadays. For this particular find, if you just Google like Corral, Corral, Bluffs, BLUFFS, fossils or mammal fossils, I bet all sorts of stuff is going to come up for you.
The Alvarez hypothesis?
Yes.
The Alvarez hypothesis on Wikipedia, and then those links I sent you, if you could post those.
I sent the first two. Do you want the other two now?
Very good. The third one is National Geographic. I'm sure it's a great article, but they wanted me to sign up or sign in, and I refused to do that. So all I can do is give you a link that I haven't looked at. The fourth article I think I sent you, Amanda, is the Alvarez hypothesis.
Same one, yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you read whichever order you want, but, if you're not familiar with the Alvarez hypothesis, that's a good place to start. And then go read the links about Corral Bluffs here. There's going to be a public TV program on Nova this Wednesday, October 30th, talking about the Corral Bluffs discovery.
I can't wait.
And I certainly hope to be glued to my TV watching it Wednesday night.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's clear and we have to. Oh, no, I probably won't be able to do a SkyTour live stream. I know not Monday and Tuesday, but maybe.
Do you know what time it's on, Daryl? Any idea? I guess just check local listings.
Yeah, check your local listings. I think Nova comes on at 7 here, but
probably 8 or 9 typically.
Yeah, and I bet it's just going to be fascinating to see. And you get to see some of the country here that I live in, and there are pictures at the first 2 articles that Amanda posted, and you can see Pikes Peak way off on the western horizon and the foothills in front of it, and all the rock formations out at Corral Bluffs. That's pretty much it.
That's fantastic.
To answer any questions.
Yeah,
just check out the articles.
If questions come in, we certainly will.
Well, Charles wanted to know how big they were, but you said they started off the size of raccoons and got to the size of pigs and some even bigger.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. Let's see. 100 pounds plus animals roaming around by 700,000 years. So it went from something the size of a raccoon to something that weighed over 100 pounds within 700,000 years. And on geologic timescales, again, I mean, that is the blink of an eye.
It is.
And what we're seeing literally is the blossoming of mammals coming into their forte after the death of the dinosaurs.
That's right. And see, it's almost as if, and I've said this before, and I think you agree, Daryl, it's almost as if we're the production of mammals on a planet is a template that the universe provides in some way. It provides a carbon-based life template. It provides that template, and oxygen is used to provide energy to carbon-based life forms. And DNA is a template provided by the universe. It seems to be it's a natural outcome. Every single life form on this planet, the billions of life forms that are, the varied species, the many billions of varied species that have occurred throughout the ages, all had DNA. And do. So clearly, this is a template that the universe provides in some way. So I think that it's interesting to think about the fact that no matter what happens on this planet, life somehow finds a way to be existent and pretty tenacious. I'm not going to quote the Jurassic Park,
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth. I was. Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. And I mean, in a cosmic blink of an eye, well, the mammals went from nothing, to they were, hey, Ma, I want to be I was a contender. They grew and started coming into their own, and here we are nowadays.
Yeah, the reasons for that, I think, are numerous, including the fact that the environment was well suited for the continuance and prolific expansion of the mammalian species. And I think that's why this has happened here. If you look at the way the history of the Earth has been broken up, okay, let's just do a quick recap here, okay? Right when the Earth was formed, there's 4 eons. They're called eons, vast tracts of time that occurred on the planet. The earliest was something called the Hadean time, like Hades, okay? Hadean time, that was when Earth formed. Earth was mostly a molten planet for a long, long time, right? And then when the crust began to form, that is to say when when the molten surface cooled, there were large tracts of rock on the ground, and of course, little molten areas. This was something called the Archean time, okay, and that's when the oldest Earth rocks are in existence and were in existence. And still, there was no life at that point. The earliest life showed up in the Proterozoic era, eon, which came next, and that, of course, happened in the ocean. So clearly, oceans occurred in the middle of that. We can always talk about when that happened and the ramifications and et cetera, with the element sodium and so forth, but that's down the line. And then we have the Phanerozoic, which was the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. So all these zoics going on. And the Phanerozoic eon contains all of the modern data that we fully understand, like the Cambrian era, when there were the first fish, okay, and trilobites, okay, the Ordovician, where there was a major diversification of life on the planet, followed by the Silurian, where the first vascular plants were in existence, again, in the waters. Then the Devonian, first amphibians, and fish began to diversify. Then came the population of the land and trees, and that was when the Carboniferous era began. And then we saw the first reptiles there. We saw that there were the trees and ferns and so forth. And this was all part of the Paleozoic. And then came the Permian. Now, there was a major extinction during the Permian Permian era, which was 252 million years ago. And that's the thing that Daryl was just mentioning too, when in that Permian era, mammals were very, very prolific, but they receded into the shadows because the environment couldn't support them any longer. And they just held on tenaciously in the background. But they were the dominant species. The pre-mammals were dominant, just before that Permian extinction. And at the major extinction, where almost 98% of all life on the planet perished, including a lot in the ocean, reptiles began to diversify. And thus began the age of the reptiles, only because of this Permian extinction, which, if you had watched and listened to Sky Tour Radio last time, this was probably an extinction due to a massive set of eruptions in what is now known as Siberia. And this eruption basically was capped by a massive lava plug, but the magmas underground spread horizontally in what are called sills, volcanic sills, spread outward from the center with many little tendrils and fingers until it reached the edge of that lava cap that had cooled on the surface. And in the process, they went through organic material that liberated lots and lots and lots, and I mean many gigatons, billions of tons of carbon dioxide. And when they reached the edge of that lava cap, it burst forth into the sky all over that lava cap, all around it. And this ended up increasing the temperature on the planet by over 20 degrees. That caused massive global warming, as you might imagine. It reduced a lot of the oxygen in the ocean, and a lot of the creatures died. Again, 98%, all because of this one set of eruptions that went on for hundreds of years. So that was a pretty traumatic time. But the mammals took it the hardest. They were nearly rendered extinct. And so after the Permian extinction, and when reptiles began to rule the roost, then comes along the first dinosaurs in the Triassic period. And these periods are all defined by events that have occurred to end them or begin them. The Permian ended with this major extinction, and the Triassic begins as a result. And there were the first mammals that were noted back in the Triassic that we could find, but they were actually just becoming dominant in the Permian. The pre-mammals were becoming dominant in the Permian before they were wiped out. They continued to move along, but in the shadows. The dinosaurs, though, arose, and in the Jurassic, we had the first birds. The dinosaurs diversified in a huge way, as you know. And then the Cretaceous comes along, and we actually had the extinction of the dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous. And during that time, we actually had the first primates, and we saw the first flowering plants, which, of course, very important development, because flowers are targets for insects, which came about earlier. And so the insects were able to then visit the plants. They visited these colorful targets that glow oddly in the ultraviolet, and they had ultraviolet eyesight. So it's an interesting symbiosis there. And that means that at the end of the Cretaceous, that led to the Tertiary, all right? And we are mammals diversified in the Tertiary, and now we're in the Quaternary, where human evolution has led us to a whole variety of different hominid forms or hominins, and that led to us eventually, Homo sapiens sapiens. And but it's really a circuitous turn of events that led us out to be exactly the way we are. You know what I mean? And that's something that we can't really project on another species elsewhere. What if there was no Permian type era on another world? What if there was no Chicxulub impact on another world where maybe reptiles had risen to the forefront? Could that lead to a different type of intelligent species? The answer is you can't say no. We have no proof, of course, and it's always just speculation. But as Amanda said, I think speculation is fun, right? And that's
I enjoy it.
Yes, it's the fun part, So it's possible. And if you look at our checkered history and all the developments that happen on the planet, and mostly all the extinction level events, and you write another history, you go through and say, what would have happened if this never happened? What if flowering plants never occurred? What would that do? How would that influence our history and the evolution of the world? Would we still be here? The answer could be no. In fact, it could be a resounding no. Or the answer could be, well, maybe we would have got here sooner. And that's an interesting thought too. We don't know. And what Daryl just went through with telling you about this Corral Gorge, Daryl?
Corral Bluffs.
Corral Bluffs, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can tell you a little about the place if you like. Colorado's about the Wild West back in the day, and Corral Bluffs, just east of town here now. Well, that used to be out in the sticks, but the cowboys built a fence across the front of the gulch or the ravine, whatever you want to call it, and made a corral out of it. And that's where they kept their horses and their livestock. Okay. And it got named Corral Bluffs Inn, and it's been Corral Bluffs ever since. And now, they're finding things a whole lot older than they ever expected there. Not to sound like the Colorado Chamber of Commerce, but the place has been famous for fossils for a long time. There's a huge rock formation here called the Morrison Formation. It runs north and south parallel to the Front Range of the Rockies here in Colorado, and I think it goes up into Wyoming and even farther possibly. Called the Morrison Formation. If you've ever been to Colorado Springs, you may have seen or heard of a place called Garden of the Gods.
Absolutely.
And then if you go farther north, they're just outside Denver, near the town of Morrison, which the formation is named after, there is Red Rocks, of course, which is where they have the rock concerts nowadays. And if you go a little farther north, you run into the Flatiron Mountains, which are very picturesque mountains just west of Boulder, Colorado. Right. And this is all the Morrison Formation. And they started finding fossils there a long time ago, over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you go up in far northwestern Colorado on the Utah border, excuse me, there is Dinosaur National Monument or National Park, whatever it is now, which is where they found a lot of really big dinosaurs.
Wow.
And
that's the those are the the Morrison formations sedimentary formations from the Jurassic era.
Uh-huh.
So it just stands to reason there'd be an awful lot of creatures and animals found there. Just incredible. I mean, Wyoming has the Green River Formation.
Uh-huh.
And, it stretches into Colorado, not Green River, but these other formations stretch into Colorado. All those inland places, there were some covered in narrow, shallow seas for a while. Once the seas receded, once the glaciers receded and retreated, it left exposed a tremendous wealth of artifacts from the past. I think it's really, really interesting. I was going to be a paleontologist. I was literally one checkbox away from being a paleontologist, but I wanted to do oceanography too. And I'm thinking, well, how do you do paleontology in the bottom of the ocean? You know, I guess you could, but the bottom of the ocean you're looking at is rock that's been lifted out of the water after many, many hundreds of millions of years, you know, and through changes to the surface. So I didn't think I was going to have the patience. So instead, I went to study something I could never touch and only see from a very long way away. And then, of course, was astronomy, right?
Hey, I wanted to be a paleontologist before I could say paleontologist, you know. Yep. We've talked about the kids section at the Carnegie Library, and, you know, I discovered the Big Book of Science, and I was fascinated by dinosaurs, and this is way back, 1960 probably, something like that, a little kid. And I made dinosaur bones out of clay and out of Play-Doh, and heck yeah, I wanted to be a dinosaur hunter. Yeah,
so did I.
Then I learned how to say paleontology and became an astronomer instead.
I like that too. But you know what? To be an astronomer, you have to have all those sciences within you in order to really understand astronomy. You have to be an earth scientist. You have to be a paleontologist. You have to be a chemist to some degree, you know.
Absolutely.
But, we'll talk about more of this when we get back. You know, we have another hour to go here on SkyTour Radio, and on behalf of Amanda and Daryl, I want to just say, stick around. We'll be right back.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com. Hey, KGRA fans and conference goers. The first big event of 2020 is all set. Join the KGRA crew in Big Bear Lake, California this January for Alien Snowfest 3. Go to aliensnowfest.com right now. See the lineup and get in on the October special for only $79. Go to aliensnowfest.com right now. $79 gets you a full weekend pass, but it's only for October, so get there now. aliensnowfest.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to SkyTour Radio. It's Mark D'Antonio here with Amanda Curran and Daryl Mason. You know, we've had some pretty successful SkyTour live stream nights lately. And just as a reminder, all those photos that we take, they're going to all be up on SkyTour live stream on Facebook. But we also are going to slowly be moving them over to astroimaginglive.com as well. They're going to be there as well, in addition, for those that don't actually have Facebook, because it's turned out that a number of the people that are frequent guests on our live streams are not Facebook folks.
Like me.
Like Daryl. Yeah, I always Skype you and send you images in Skype.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but what do I do for everybody else? Well, I hadn't been. So now what we're doing is we're going to put them up on astroimaginglive.com, another place you can go to see your one-stop shop of Bill New York Skywatcher, P&K Space Imaging, and of course yours truly, SkyTour Livestream with Amanda and Daryl. So it is a great, it's fantastic to be able to provide these services to you guys, and you've been more than generous and amazing in your support and your questions more than anything else. I've really enjoyed how you guys have really taken it to heart, and I'm talking about all of you listening to SkyTour Radio. Daryl and Amanda have already taken it to heart. I don't have to ask them, I don't think. But what I wanted to do was to go into our feature tonight, which for the last hour, and I really want to talk to you about, when we talk about how the planet was made and how it was built up. We take for granted that it was built up with these materials, iron and other chemicals and chemistry that we see, and then compounds in the ground, calcium carbonate, all these different compounds. No, we're not going to do a chemistry lesson. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, with a little more detail, about where all the materials come from to make the planets that we see. And there are some, and I know Daryl probably knows something about this too, and Amanda may surprise me as well. But, there used to be an old theory that said that all the rocky terrestrial planets would form nearest the sun because the things like Jupiter, well, their atmospheres are too volatile to remain intact closer to the star. That was the old theory. And of course, when we started finding exoplanets such as WASP-12b that we just talked about earlier, we discover a Jupiter-like planet that is orbiting a star in just 1.1 days, and its atmosphere is hot and incandescent gas. So clearly, the way planets form is not as was thought of in the past. And now we know that you can have terrestrial planets out beyond gas giants. You can have gas giants and terrestrial planets, rocky planets like Earth, mixed together throughout a solar system. It just happens to be what materials were there when it was formed. What's funny is I've always thought that. And I remember when we were learning about the different types and the stratification of planetary systems around the star, they used the solar system example as the be-all, end-all example for how you would, now not might, but would expect to see solar system or star systems around other stars. Clearly, this is not the case. Okay, clearly it's not the case. And most people didn't realize that there were going to be these little tiny red dwarf stars like TRAPPIST-1, all right, that looks like it has 7 terrestrial-type planets, rocky, all within the orbit of Mercury going around it. So clearly the universe has thrown curves at astronomy in the past. Tremendous number of curves. But when we look at the periodic table and all the elements that we have in our table, there's one thing where we actually do have a pretty good feel for the science. For instance, we know that stars perform something called nucleosynthesis. Now, these are the ways in which a star generates energy, right? In our sun, it makes hydrogen into helium, right? Well, in the bigger stars, the end result is hydrogen into helium as well, but it uses a different process to get there. And I just want to talk about those processes a little bit. In the entire universe, there's only two methods of nucleosynthesis that we have been able to locate and identify. One is the one that our sun uses, and stands to reason it's the first one we've discovered. It's called the proton-proton process. And then the other one is the CNO process, or carbon-nitrogen-oxygen process. So how does that work? I mean, what actually is going on there? And we won't get into any weeds here, okay? But I think it's pretty cool to see how this works, because it really ends up bringing about all the elements that are made, that the planet is made of, and that you are made of. And it may speak to why the universe is a carbon universe. That is to say, carbon is actually the fourth most abundant element in the universe, only upended by oxygen, which is just ahead of it, and then of course hydrogen and helium. Hydrogen is the most prolific, helium's next, then there's oxygen, then there's carbon. So it stands to reason that carbon would be pretty flexible. Oxygen is pretty flexible too, but it is also it oxidizes, and so you can't have too much oxygen around, because it can then go into making water very acidic or the other way. So it's not something that works so well for that. Carbon is actually a solid form. Oxygen is a gaseous form. So solid forms, the first solid form in the periodic table that is abundant is carbon. And carbon has the highest number of bonds that it can create with the highest number of elements in the periodic table. It is by far the granddaddy of all elements in the periodic table. So in stars like our sun, we have hydrogen gas in the sun. And whatever the sun was made from in the universe is what we would have in its outer atmosphere. Only the core of the star is actually undergoing this nucleosynthesis, this hydrogen into helium process, only in the core. That's all. It's not happening in the outer envelope of the star, the outer areas. It's happening only in the core. And this is something that was not understood initially, but now it is. And this core that we have in our star, it can only get hot enough to make hydrogen into helium one particular way. And what you hear the proton-proton thing that we say is a proton-proton chain. Well, it's a chain like there's links on a chain, but it's not a chain reaction, okay? If you get one thing happening, it doesn't mean the next thing's automatically going to happen. It doesn't happen that way. At almost every step, the atoms that are made can remain that way. They don't have to change. But sometimes they do, though, because there's so many of them. So in an active core like the sun, you're going to see the succession of atoms be produced in there. Now, the proton-proton chain in our sun is really simple. It takes 4 hydrogen atoms, and it makes 2 hydrogen atoms plus 4, helium-4. And what is helium-4? Helium-4 is an isotope of helium. What's an isotope? An isotope is an ordinary atom, like helium has 2 protons, 2 electrons. But if you add another 2 neutrons, well, now you have helium-4. It is an isotope. So adding neutrons, which have no charge, 0 charge, to an atom creates an isotope. So in the sun, the sun with its mass can probably only get up to making maybe oxygen. All right. And that's number 8 in the periodic table. It could make some carbon, which is number 6. And it could be very prevalent in the star. And So it can make it can make helium, it can make carbon, it can make nitrogen, oxygen, perhaps. And as I said, carbon's fourth most abundant in the universe, and it's the most powerful atom in the periodic table in terms of the capability. It can bond with more elements, as I said, and form more compounds than any other, and it's more flexible. And that's the big thing. It's more flexible than any other element. So it's no surprise that there's carbon-based life and that it's prolific on the Earth. My idea, which I've said before, is that carbon-based life is probably going to be the normal type of life in the universe, and not the exception. And I'd be interested to hear what Daryl and Amanda have to say about that. So, Daryl, what do you think?
I like rock monsters. You know that.
I knew that was
I can't argue with what you're saying, Mark, about carbon. I mean, it involves itself with a lot of other elements, and that's where we get our hydrocarbons and carbohydrates, and throw some nitrogen and phosphorus and sulfur in there, and all of a sudden you got something that sounds like a 70s cop TV show, Chomps.
Chomps, right. That's right. We've talked about Chomps before: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur.
Could I throw something in here? I sent you a link or two a few days ago about the star Gamma Cassiopeia. For people familiar with Cassiopeia, it's that crooked W that's up rising in the northeast after sunset this time of year. Later at night, it'll be pretty much due north or overhead. Gamma Cass is a so-called BE star. That's a stellar classification B, just after O, so it is a really big, really hot star. And these BE stars, capital B, small e, I guess, they are burning at a furious rate, and they are also synthesizing elements and spewing them out into space at a furious rate. It turns out these BE stars, they think they're spinning at a high rate, and they're blowing out matter around their equatorial plane, and that they may have a disk around them, and that this is where some of the heavier elements are coming from. Not the real heavy elements, but getting up there above what the sun can produce.
Yeah.
Look up BE stars if you have an interest, folks, or even look up Gamma Cassiopeia.
Yeah, that's an excellent contribution. I think that's very important considering where we're taking this. You know.
And I bet ultimately maybe you're going to talk about colliding neutron stars and stuff like that, huh?
I will. I'll be talking about mergers. Yes. Okay. And that is, of course, another way in which elements are created. But see, the idea is like, how many different ways can the elements in the periodic table be made? The answer is there's a number of possibilities, and we've talked about how life on Earth is symmetric. It's bilaterally symmetric, left and right, equal sides. We have both, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 hemisphere brain, all those things. The way we interact with our environment is through bilateral symmetry. Every larger life form on this planet of any substantial size, in other words, salamander on up or beyond, interacts this way with the world through this bilateral symmetry. That's important. That's another pattern that the universe provides. So is deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. And so maybe that symmetry comes from something I've said before, and that is when DNA is made in the cells, what happens is, it unzips. It's a double helix. Well, if you only get one half of the helix, then you have to get a symmetric mirror to it. And to get that symmetric mirror, the ribonucleic acid, or RNA, is transported to a different part of the cell, and the DNA helix is made again and zipped onto it. So you end up getting this new structure, a copy of the old structure. So it's going to be symmetric, and so perhaps that's where the whole symmetry question starts with us. Now, so that's just something that is way further on down the line. Okay, but it has to do with oxygen being used to make energy and carbon being the basis for the life forms that we're talking about. But it all starts in the heart of a star. And larger stars will use a different process, for instance, to create their energy. They won't use this, 4 hydrogens goes to 2 hydrogens plus helium-4 process. They go to something called the CNO cycle, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, because a star like our sun might make oxygen eventually, okay? But it's going to take it a while. And the larger stars will make oxygen fairly soon. And the CNO cycle, it uses carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen as sort of a catalyst to make helium. The whole process of fusion is to go from hydrogen into helium. Smaller stars like our sun use the proton-proton method. Larger stars use carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen as a catalyst to make helium. And that's what's called the CNO cycle. That's why there's only 2 that we know of, the proton-proton and the CNO cycle, to make helium. It's sort of like a easy bake oven, but it's all stars. And so these heavier, more massive stars can make up to the periodic table element of iron, as most of you know, and those that have followed, which is number 26 in the periodic table. And iron can no longer be fused into anything beyond, because it takes more energy to fuse iron than the star would get out of it. So it's a negative reaction. So these iron atoms end up building up in the core on these heavy stars. And when this gets to the point where the outer area around the iron core, which has been fusing hydrogen through the CNO cycle furiously into helium, when that hydrogen fuel finally goes away, then something catastrophic can happen. And that is when we have the cataclysm known as a supernova that occurs. And a supernova is just, it's one of the most cataclysmic explosions that can happen, not the most. We now know about what are called hypernovas, all right, and kilonovas, and these are much larger explosions. But there are, in our periodic table, there's 118 elements. Okay, when you have a supernova, additional elements up to zirconium, which is 40 in the periodic table, can be made. But what a minute, there's 118. What about the rest? Well, the rest are made in a really interesting way. They're made, for one thing, as Daryl said before, some of them are made from merging neutron stars. We've identified, for instance, that gold is made in merging neutron stars. And we've identified that platinum is made this way. All right. There's probably a whole maybe 20 or 25 elements that can be made from merging neutron stars.
I still have a problem getting my head around that last part. I know that's a popular theory nowadays. Once upon a time, they said, well, golly, when a supernova happens, that's where we get all our heavy elements, so to speak. And nowadays, they say, gold. And I read about them detecting platinum in supernova, collision remnants nowadays. Read about that just the other day. It gets stranger and stranger, Golly, you take 2 big giant hunks of neutronium and slam them together, you'd think you'd get one great big hunk of neutronium or a black hole out of it, But that's where evidently we're getting our gold and all our really heavy elements at.
Yeah, and as you suspect, it's not such a simple merger when neutron stars collide. And neutrons, don't forget, are just one. They're kind of one level away from being protons, and the reason for that will become clear in a minute. But so you can imagine, if you have a lot of neutrons floating around, it's pretty possible that you can get a lot of those neutrons converted into all kinds of different protons, which would then be made into all kinds of different elements in a periodic table. So remember, the periodic table is numbered from 1 to 118, and it's basically the number of protons in the nucleus of the atom that numbers the periodic table. And if you add some neutrons to each of these atoms, then those become isotopes of the same type of atom. So carbon-14 is just carbon with additional neutrons in it. So 6 additional neutrons, all right, to make carbon-14. Now, that carbon can also be infused with more neutrons. And so an additional neutron or two could be thrown into the carbon atom, making an unstable isotope of carbon. And then something happens when we reach those instability locations. And that's something called beta decay. What happens? It means that stars that are usually in their red giant stage and are chugging away with trying to burn and fuse other materials other than hydrogen. These stars are called, these stars actually will end up creating other elements because the neutrons that are additional in, say, the carbon-14 atom, okay, say carbon-15, say there's 15, 16, 17, those isotopes may not be stable. And what happens is a neutron can spontaneously convert to a proton. And it has to do with the way neutrons and protons are made. Do you remember the quark layout for protons at all, Daryl? Are you familiar? Each proton, each neutron is made up of different quarks, right? So,
quarks. I thought you said quarks.
I said quarks.
Yeah, quarks. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So you have 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, and you got a proton. 2 down quarks and 1 up quark, and you've got a neutron. So if you just reverse one of those quarks in a neutron, okay, then it becomes a proton. And that's a process that we've actually identified happening in the stars. That process takes a long time to occur because of, it's a statistical process. Over time, a statistical amount of these proton or neutrons can get converted. And it's called the S process, which stands for slow. All right. And it occurs in stars that are like half the mass of the sun, up to about 10 times the mass of the sun. And when the hydrogen runs out in these stars, then they shrink initially, and more hydrogen is brought into the core along with other elements. And then it gets very, very hot. And now we get something else happening. We get a secondary set of fusion processes going off, and the star now grows immeasurably in size and enters what we call the red giant phase. And in the red giant phase, we have a point where it's a sort of an instability area, and it's actually called the asymptotic giant branch. Don't worry about the name. Understand, though, that at this particular point, this is where the S process becomes important. And it's also a point at where in the star's final years, or final eons, this is where a star, if it's going to make a planetary nebula, is going to start making a planetary nebula. So this is where a dumbbell nebula or a ring nebula might form during this phase, because a star is kind of pulsating. And this pulsation, called thermal pulsation, is a point where the star is going through this S process. It's making elements farther up in the periodic table because it's converting some of the neutrons in the atoms, okay, into protons, which makes it a next element in the periodic table. And this happens for quite a lot of elements. And we have this happen all the way up to lead, number 82 in the periodic table. And there's even some bismuth and polonium that's created, which is a little beyond lead, but then it drops back down. But for the most part, we get just a little bit of these materials that are created. And I think that if we look at how this works, this between the supernovas, between the merging neutron stars, and between the dying low mass stars, which we're talking about now with the S process, this is where we're getting most of the elements in our periodic table from. It's really fascinating stuff, you know? And so it's just, I think that I think this is basically something that we didn't know in the past. And as new information, it's really fascinating to us to discover this stuff. knowing how a planetary nebula forms, how it happens, is really cool. In Sky Tour Livestream, we've seen the Dumbbell Nebula. It's gorgeous. We've seen the Cat's Eye Nebula that Amanda loves because it's mesmerizing with that turquoisey blue color.
It's gorgeous.
And, yeah, it is. And Daryl, you know what that color's from. I know what that color's from. You know, that beautiful turquoise color is from none other than oxygen.
Yep.
You know, and so it's just an amazing process that creates these planetary nebulae. And the glow, of course, is because the stars, the core star, that white dwarf in the middle, is actually radiating so much ultraviolet radiation that's causing that radiation to glow. So unbelievable. Now, you know, I know that when we come back, we're going to be talking about a few more things with this S process. And we'll take some of your questions too, because I know there's some questions out there. And you know what? It doesn't matter if questions aren't directly in line with the topic we're talking about. It's quite all right. I mean, when do you get an astronomer to talk to, right? That's okay. You know, between Daryl and I and Amanda, we got you covered. We do.
Will we get to talk about the neutron stars?
And we will talk about the neutron stars.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'll let you start in with the neutron stars. How about that?
Well, come on. Don't put me in a corner.
Certainly not. Not at all.
No, as I said, I still have yet to get my head around that, but I would like to ask you a question or two about it. Maybe you could enlighten me.
Sure. Remember, there's an S process and there's an R process too, and that means rapid process. So there's other ways in which elements are created. Anyway, we'll talk more about that when we get back. This is Mark D'Antonio with Daryl Mason and Amanda Curran on Sky Tour Radio, your one-stop shop for astronomy on KGRARadio.com. We'll be right back.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Hey, KGRA fans and conference goers. The first big event of 2020 is all set. Join the KGRA crew in Big Bear Lake, California this January for Alien Snowfest 3. Go to aliensnowfest.com right now. See the lineup and get in on the October special for only $79. Go to aliensnowfest.com right now. $79 gets you a full weekend pass, but it's only for October, so get there now. aliensnowfest.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, this is Mark D'Antonio with SkyTour Radio. Welcome back. And I did put out a call for questions, and they have been coming in. This is fantastic. If you guys have questions, like I said, I don't care if it takes to the rest of the show. I'm here to answer them. Daryl's here to answer them. We're all here to answer them for you because you guys are amazing. Amanda,
and I'm going to grab them because I might not be able to answer them. This one was going back when we were talking about WASP 12b.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was really a star system or just one exoplanet. I'm assuming. I don't think he meant our star system, but Ronald wanted to know what would a giant planet do to the balance of a star system, of the star system. So I don't know if he meant stars.
That sounds like he's talking about WASP 12.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And the star system is WASP 12b because there's actually one known planet in that star system. So, we know what Jupiter does in our solar system. Jupiter has a profound influence on the development of life millions and millions of miles away from it here on Earth. Jupiter has helped sweep the outer region clear of things that could have collided with us and rendered us sterile time and time again. Missed a few times, and that's why we had these extinction events, right? I put it to a lot of people that the moon being around our planet is actually also an attractor of impactors, not something that protects us because it's screening the area for us. I think that it's drawing, along with the Earth, drawing anything nearby toward our Earth-Moon system. And thus, it's more of a danger than something that helps us, believe it or not. That's just my feeling. But Ronald's question about what would a giant planet do to the balance of a star system is answered just by looking at our solar system and seeing how Jupiter has helped us. Now, this planet is, and WASP 12b, this planet is going to be absorbed into the star. It's going to take it about 1 million years to get there. To finally spiral in. Because, again, 29 milliseconds a year doesn't sound like a lot, but multiply it by 1 million, and you get the answer that the transit time is shortening dramatically. That means that the orbit is decaying. And that'd be the worst thing to hear here on Earth, that the Earth orbit is decaying into, say, the sun. That would be the end of life, on the horizon. So basically, a giant planet, if there's more planets in the system, it could be instrumental in keeping that system, or keeping the any life-bearing planets free of problems, or it could also cause them to have more problems. So it really depends on the situation. But that's a good question, Ronald. Thank you.
Because I was wondering what a larger planet than Jupiter in our solar system would do. Would smaller planets start orbiting that as almost like moons?
Well, isn't that kind of what we have? I mean, we have Jupiter has 62 moons now, or 68 moons, and I think Saturn went up to 82 moons now.
Wow.
He got 20 new moons. No, it didn't buy them, cheaply at Walmart. It's just that we finally were able to detect them. Mm-hmm. So, and there's some star systems. See, here's where the lines get blurred. There's some star systems out there where it makes more sense to talk about Jupiter and its moon system than the sun and its planetary system, because those little red M dwarfs, like TRAPPIST-1, for instance, TRAPPIST-1 has these 7 planets that are all orbiting closer than the orbit of Mercury is to our sun. And potentially 3 of those planets are in that star's habitable zone. Can you believe it? Now, that said, the star is only a fraction of the output of our own sun. It's tiny. It's redder. The light is more red. And so it probably look like a perpetual sunset every day, except when it's overhead. But that is an interesting case study, because now we have to think, do we talk about the planet, or do we talk about Jupiter and its moons and compare it to TRAPPIST-1 and its planets? And does that make more sense than talking about the sun and its planets? And the answer is yes, it does make more sense. All right, because the mass is more close to Jupiter than it is to our sun for TRAPPIST-1. And the planets, although somewhat Earth-sized, are actually larger than any of Jupiter's moons, but the fact is they are still in a tiny, tiny little, we'll call it a toy star system. It's so small. So it's not an easy question to answer, Amanda, but, because there's a lot of different considerations, you see.
Very cool. It's interesting to think about.
It is.
What it would look like and what that means for other star systems. And
I know. You're right. Now, what do you got?
Well, again, a lot of these are new concepts for me too, right? So, like, you've probably pondered these questions years ago, but it's interesting.
I haven't heard all the questions, I can tell you that. Any more questions out there for us now?
Oh, lots, and they keep coming, so that's wonderful.
Let's go through them then.
Okay, Jake wants to know, what does the Milky Way galaxy look like from the southern hemisphere? Is the belt of stars amazing to look at it in real life? Oh, okay. It's just a personalized.
You know what? Here's the interesting thing. We live on a sphere. The Earth is a sphere, contrary to the flat earthers' belief. And so, for instance, when you look here at, say, Orion the Hunter has Betelgeuse at the top left. Okay, Rigel at the lower right, and the belt of 3 in the middle. Okay, and that's from the northern hemisphere. However, if you go below the equator and you look at Orion, it's upside down. You see Betelgeuse is now at the lower right, and Rigel's at the upper left, and the belt goes the other way. So this is a function of what happens and a consequence of what happens when you live on a ball that has its own gravity that we know it has. All right. And as far as how does the Milky Way look? Well, the Milky Way, the center of the Milky Way is in the region of Sagittarius. And from the northern hemisphere, way up high north, you don't really get to see that too well. If you were at the equator, then Sagittarius would be just very close to the equator for you, and it would be stunning. You'd see some really beautiful views. Probably the best place to view it from. And then if you get farther south, you start to see the southern Milky Way, and you get to see 2 dwarf companion galaxies that may or may not, I have to say that because we don't actually know anymore, may or may not be companion galaxies to our own. And those are the Magellanic Clouds. You have the small and the large Magellanic Cloud. And they the Milky Way is beautiful to look at whether you're in the northern or the southern hemisphere. You just need to have a dark sky sight, or, as we've discovered, and Daryl will admit, a good filter for your telescope.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. But yeah, so go ahead, Amanda.
Wonderful. No, I was going to say a few more questions coming in.
Sure, go ahead.
Ronald wants to know how all the insects survived all the extinction events.
That's actually a good question, Ronald. Now, the reason the insects survived is, in fact, the answer, first of all, the short answer is that a lot of them did not. But
that's what I was thinking.
You are correct.
Must have, carry on.
You are correct. But the fact remains that insects have lower requirements than a gigantic reptile or creature that requires a lot of calories to survive during the day. Insects can basically slow down, and they can actually make use of the fact that they can rest for long periods. A large creature, though, that has a large oxygen requirement and a calorie intake requirement needs to have food to survive. Insects do as well, but they can get along for longer without the food because of the fact that their food won't disappear as quickly as a large creature's food source might. All right. So like a large dinosaur, for instance, if their food source dried up, they're not going to survive more than 3 or 4 days. For an insect, the insect can just fly to a different location where there's more plants, because plants are hugely prevalent, and were hugely prevalent in the ancient world. So dinosaurs, on the other hand, had to look for other creatures to eat, and they didn't usually eat plants. There are vegetarian dinosaurs, of course. Brachiosaurus, for instance, long neck so they could reach up into the trees. So they would survive better than a meat eater, for instance. Those theropods probably suffered faster than the brachiopods, but the brachiopods soon followed because they were, of course, eating food that was slowly dying away as well. But the insects didn't all survive. They were also hard hit as well, but again, their requirements were less than the meat eaters and the brachiopods, so they had a somewhat easier time. Now, here's a good question: what if all the meat eaters and all the brachiopods and all, that is to say, vegetarians, what if they all were destroyed, leaving in a planet entirely of insects? Is it possible that we could end up with an intelligent insect? Well, what is intelligence? Intelligence is not a foregone conclusion. It's a potential destination. So we'd have to look at the diversification of insects to see if they were going down a path that could maybe lead to some type of intelligence. We don't know. And we can say there's certain insects that are pretty much going to be dead-ended after a while. That is to say, no more development, because their development was so specialized that for perhaps it was just a very specialized behavior that they developed that sustained them, that was naturally selected to sustain them. They didn't require any diversification. But, that may not be the case in a different world. Who knows? So anyway, I thought that was a really good question. What else you got?
It is a very interesting question. Next one is from Galaxy. They want to know what your thoughts on helium, silicon, or other life form would be if we are carbon-based. Okay, so if I hear you right, I think Galaxy is asking about the potential for like a helium-based life form or a silicon-based life form. Yeah. Okay. Well, what I mentioned before. First of all, we can't just outright say it's impossible. I think I can say that a helium-based life form probably would never exist. And I'm fairly certain that a silicon-based life form would be extremely rare if it could ever happen at all. And I know that it's been popular in science fiction and so forth, but let me explain. When you look at the way the carbon atom works, the carbon atom is fascinating, okay? Because, for instance, to make methane, for instance, okay, the carbon atom combines with several hydrogen atoms, and you end up with this methane. Methane's this wonderful hydrocarbon. It's very easy to make, right? Methane is also something that can deteriorate and break down. The carbon can then find other elements to bond with, like oxygen. Okay, it can make these OH groups. It can make different compounds. In fact, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different compounds, all because it's carbon. Silicon doesn't have that flexibility. So if anything, it'd be, say, I'm not even sure if it's even a distant second. I don't even think that phraseology would make sense to call it a distant second to carbon. So I think that the carbon-based life, and then this is why I've called myself a carbon bigot. I'm a carbon chauvinist, I guess. And it's only because it'll be easier for us to find life that is like us than life not like us. We know what to look for life like us. We do. Whether we want to admit it or not, we know what to look for. And so it's important, I think, for us to look for those things that we have run up against as well. So I don't know. I think that's a strong possibility that carbon would probably be the dominant life-giving and life-basis atom in the universe. There might be others. I'm not going to say there won't be, but I think carbon's probably the granddaddy. What do you think of that?
Helium is a noble gas, is it not? That is, it does not interact with other elements, or very rarely.
Correct.
Yeah, and I assume the whole thing about carbon being so friendly, to join with other elements, is your point about why carbon is by far most likely candidate, to support life.
Right.
Helium, on the other hand, being what it is, a noble gas, exactly because it doesn't interact with other elements, probably greatly lessens its chance of ever, being able to host life.
Right. I mean, and same as such for neon and argon and krypton, xenon and radon. I mean, those are all noble gases, right? So it's very unlikely that we would see that because the interaction is something that would be required. So that's why I would not expect helium ever in that regard. But that's a good call on that, Daryl. Good call. What else you got, Amanda?
We have from Jacob. Okay. Do all solar systems have an asteroid field? Which I really like. I really am interested in that answer.
Yes, because that's a very good question. We don't know why asteroid fields exist other than what we see here. What we see here is that Jupiter prevented the asteroids from ever coalescing into a permanent object. So when we see asteroids, and we do actually see asteroids, some big asteroid belts around other stars, then we will look at these and say, is there something in that system that's preventing these asteroids from forming into an object? So not all solar systems, we won't call them solar systems because solar system means us. Star systems, do all star systems have an asteroid field? The answer is they don't have to. I don't suspect that they would all, but I do know that it's probable that most of them will have the equivalent of a Kuiper belt and an Oort cloud. That is the icy debris that's on the outside of the system circulating. An asteroid belt is a specific material set that is in the outer or inner star system. And I would though expect that there might be a Kuiper belt, the icy object realm, but not necessarily asteroids. Daryl, you got
yes, I do. Well, would it be splitting hairs to really differentiate between a so-called asteroid belt as we think of it conventionally and what you might call a protoplanetary disk? It's just a big disk of dust and rocks and junk accumulating out there. We have directly imaged protoplanetary disks, I guess you would say, around some stars. Fomalhaut, right. Beta Pictoris come to mind.
Yep.
Vega. I'm sorry, and
Even
Vega. Yes. I mean, ultimately, are they really much the same thing, whether you want to call it a protoplanetary disk or an asteroid belt?
I think what we call an asteroid belt is objects in the belt that may be large enough to be spherical in size. And we do have some here. We have Ceres, obviously, which is spherical in size because its size is such that, it's a dwarf planet, So maybe we have to reclassify asteroid fields as being craggy rocks that also have a few dwarf planets mixed in. I don't know.
Yeah, well, as you said earlier, in our case, Jupiter, some people say that Jupiter kept the asteroid belt from forming another planet, though people will also say that there's not actually enough material in the asteroid belt to make a planet, but sort of a shepherding effect, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if you add it all up, if you add up the asteroids in the asteroid belt and you said you wanted to make them into a planet or whatever it would make something smaller than 1/4 the size of the moon.
Yep.
All the mass in the asteroid belt.
Yep.
Yeah.
May I tackle the last question there?
Yeah, and as long as you mentioned WASP 12.
For binary stars, 3 stars, or something else?
3 stars.
Okay. Why do I want to mention WASP 12b there?
It's a trinary star system.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that, but I do now. Jacob, yes, 3-star systems are possible. More than that are possible, but sometimes they get unstable. All we have to do is look next door at Alpha Centauri, which is a 3-star system.
That's right.
You've got 2 stars relatively close together, and then the third one, Proxima Centauri, is outdoing laps around the others, I think. But it's a 3-star system.
Yeah. And they're kind of in a somewhat stable configuration because Proxima is far enough away so that it's orbiting the other 2 stars.
Yes.
As one logical star in the middle. But triple stars are possible and do exist. We've identified a number. There are some quaternaries, that is to say 4 stars, but it's really getting crazy when you try to go there. I mean, of course, you can ask, well, what about the trapezium? Those are 4 stars in the center of Orion. Are they gravitationally bound? Well, the answer is that they are right now, but who knows where their motions are going to take them. They're fairly young, so if they actually will start circling around each other, they may eject 1 or 2 from each other, over time. We don't know yet.
Yes.
So there's a way to figure that out, but we haven't.
Yeah, but you can get into chaotic orbits or whatever. Big systems can get unstable, but also in Orion, there's one of my favorite multiple star systems, is Sigma Orion.
Sigma Orionis. I knew you were going to say that. Yep.
Yep, and
the Horsehead Nebula.
It illuminates the Horsehead. Yeah. Sigma is a whole bunch of stars all conglomerated together. Some of those are in pairs orbiting other pairs and maybe orbiting other pairs. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Sigma in the eyepiece, it's just spectacular to behold. Stars can get boring after a while because they all kind of look alike. But believe me, Sigma Orion is not boring looking.
Well, I think that as the season comes up, I believe that we will be doing some views of Sigma Orionis. Yeah, I think that'll be a good idea. And remember, folks, too, also on some of the cloudy nights, we will be taking 3D journeys into the universe. We do have a tool that we like to use that allows us to leave the Earth, zip through the auroras over the northern hemisphere of the Earth, the poles, keep on going, circle the Pleiades in 3D real time and look at the reflection nebula around them and go anywhere you want in the universe. And that's something that we do, and it's really a lot of fun. And so be looking for those streams as well in Sky Tour live stream. And Daryl is usually there with us. Amanda's usually there with us. Yeah, we're kind of a happy triumvirate, we just sort of like to do these things, and I'm sort of incorrigible because I remember, and Amanda knows this, I'll be ready to shut down the stream because I'm just dead tired. And I'll say, okay, last object. We get the last object, and then all of a sudden I get a second wind, a third wind, a fourth wind, and I say, wait a minute, just one more object. And I've been known to go on an additional 2 hours. Like one of the recent streams, I think, Amanda, I did 4 hours, 30 minutes. I think
you always say you're going to try to cap it at 2 because 2 is good portion size.
Yeah.
And 4.5, 5 hours later, just one more.
I don't know what it is. But see, this is the excitement, you guys. This is what I'm made of. I'm made of star stuff, so I've got to investigate these stars. Carl Sagan said it best, we are made of star stuff, and I believe that it behooves me anyway to learn as much about this star stuff as we can. I just think it's so cool,
We have one last question coming in. Kathy wants to know, do you think Oumuamua might be an escapee from an asteroid belt or a fragment of an exploded planet?
That's a very interesting question. It's Oumuamua, by the way. Just
Oh, sorry. I knew I was going to mispronounce that, but I took a shot.
It's okay. The name in Hawaiian means messenger from afar. Or,
yes.
There's many different translations actually that apply to it, but
Oumuamua.
Yeah, Oumuamua is an interesting interloper. It was definitely extrasolar, meaning it came from outside our solar system. its shape was very odd. And Avi Loeb, who's at the Harvard Observatory, I think he's the director of the Harvard Observatory. Avi Loeb and I did a ABC show where we talked about Oumuamua. And one of the things that he mentioned was he thought it could be, and he wasn't saying it was. He was saying, for all we know. That's kind of how he was phrasing it. He's very speculative like I am, which I think is wonderful. He said, for all we know, this could have been an ancient solar sailing spacecraft from another civilization. And it could have been. And he said that precisely because of the shape. It was a really strange shape that might have been a shape that a large solar sail craft could attain at one point when it was, reaching a gravitational system like ours. So Oumuamua, if it was a rock, an asteroid, which is probably more likely, actually, it was definitely an interloper from another place. Now, what was it? We don't know. It went by so fast that we couldn't really study it for very long. It was here and gone in just a short time.
And it was on its way out before we ever saw it, right?
That's right. It came in at over 100,000 kilometers an hour, and it left at around 86,000 miles an hour, kilometers per hour. So it really was a fast mover object, and I think it's heading off toward the constellation Pegasus right now, if I recall. But it's really something that could very well be. I would think it's an asteroid from another star system, and it got ejected from that star system. We also don't forget the other interstellar interloper, the comet, that we think is whistling through. That was actually an interstellar extrasolar comet visiting our solar system as well. Now, it doesn't mean that they're picking up in frequency, saying, wow, more and more of these are interstellar. No, it just means that we're able to detect more and more. So they're happening all the time. It's just that we're not catching them. And when Oumuamua came through, we were told by a number of astronomers that this is probably one of several events per year that we're not catching. Okay, we just happen to catch this one, So I think that's pretty fair to say that this is what's going on, But I would say Oumuamua is probably an asteroid that was ejected from its solar system. The spindly nature of this thing probably wouldn't be likely an object that is a blown up planet. Okay, but I'm not sure.
That's a good thing to think about as we end our show.
It is.
We didn't even get to talk about colliding neutrons.
We didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. These are great questions, and you said it didn't have to be on topic. Anything goes.
Yeah.
We didn't have our phone lines tonight, so.
Yeah, but we're done. It's
We're
over.
done
right?
for this week.
Yeah.
Come back next week for more.
Folks, this is Mark D'Antonio with SkyTour Radio, and we have Amanda Curran. Say night-night, Amanda.
Good night, Amanda.
Daryl Mason. Say good night, Daryl.
Good night, Daryl. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you all on the next go-round of SkyTour Radio next week. Be there or be square. And don't forget, keep looking up.